The cursor blinked accusingly on my screen, each flash like a tiny dagger to my heart. 3 times I read the email, hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something less devastating. They didn't. I'm Ashlyn, and until 5 minutes ago, I thought I had my life figured out. The attached photos made a mockery of that belief. My husband Dylan, the man who'd kissed me goodbye this morning, was wrapped around a woman who definitely wasn't me. The timestamp showed last Tuesday, when he'd claimed to be at a business conference in Seattle. "Mom? Are you okay?" Sophie's voice pierced through my spiral. She stood in my home office doorway, her 13-year-old face scrunched with concern. I slammed my laptop shut. "Just work stuff, honey. Everything's fine. You look like you're going to throw up." "Thanks for that assessment." I forced a smile. "Don't you have homework?" "Already done." Dad texted. "He's working late again." Of course he was. My fingers curled into fists beneath my desk. "Right. How about pizza for dinner?" "You hate ordering pizza on weeknights." "Maybe I'm feeling rebellious." The word tasted bitter on my tongue. Sophie lingered, and I could feel her studying me with those 2 perceptive eyes she inherited from her father. "Really, sweetheart?" "I'm fine." After she left, I reopened the laptop. The anonymous email waited. "Thought you should know what your husband's really been doing. A friend." Below that, 5 photos, each more damning than the last. The woman was younger, blonde, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. My phone buzzed. Dylan's message popped up, "Big project. Don't wait up. Love you." I wanted to vomit. Instead, I opened our banking app. There it was, a charge from the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, carefully labeled as conference registration fee. My IT background kicked in. Within minutes, I had access to his email, calendar, credit card statements. The truth unfolded like a map of betrayal, each discovery a new pin in my heart. "Ashlyn?" My mother's voice came through my headset. I must have dialed her without realizing. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Everything. Just checking in." "Don't lie to your mother. I can hear it in your voice." I swallowed hard. "Mom, I need to handle something. But I might need your help with Sophie soon." "Whatever you need, sweetheart." She paused. "Is it Dylan?" "How did you?" Mothers know these things. And I never trusted that smile of his. Too perfect. A laugh escaped me, sharp and hollow. "I have to go. Sophie needs dinner. Call me tomorrow. Promise me." "I promise." After hanging up, I stared at the evidence spread across my screen. 15 years of marriage, and I'd never once checked his accounts. Never questioned his late nights or business trips. Trust, I'd called it. Stupidity, looking back. My cursor hovered over the forward button. 1 click and I could send everything to his boss, his family, our friends. But Sophie's face flashed in my mind, and I forced myself to think. Dylan had always underestimated me, treated my tech skills as cute hobby rather than a career. He probably thought I'd never find out, or if I did, I'd be too scared to act. He was wrong on both counts. I closed the email without forwarding it. Instead, I opened a new document and began typing, methodically listing every account, every transaction, every lie I'd uncovered. By the time Sophie called up that the pizza had arrived, I had the beginnings of a plan. Dylan wanted to play games? Fine. But he'd forgotten something crucial. In chess, the queen is the most powerful piece on the board. And I'd just made my opening move. Dylan came home late that night, smelling of expensive cologne and whiskey. I watched him stumble through his nightly routine from behind my laptop screen. My fingers never pausing as I documented another string of suspicious transactions. Still working? He loosened his tie, flashing that perfect smile that used to make my heart skip. Now it just made my stomach turn. The farm tech project again? Someone has to pay attention to our future. The words came out sharper than I intended. His smile flickered. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I forced myself to look back at my screen. Just tired. You know, if you're worried about money, I could always. I'm not worried about money. I was worried about the $20,000 he'd withdrawn last month. Labeled as business investment. I was worried about the credit card charges at jewelry stores that had never resulted in gifts for me. I was worried about how easily lies slipped from his lips. Sophie appeared in the doorway, already in her pajamas. Dad, you missed pizza night. Sorry, princess. Big client dinner. He moved to hug her, but she stepped back. Whatever. Mom, can you help me with my coding project tomorrow? Of course, honey. Dylan's face darkened. Since when are you into coding? Since forever, Sophie shot back. You'd know that if you were ever home. Sophie, I warned, even as pride swelled in my chest. My daughter, so fierce, so perceptive. No, she's right. Dylan ran a hand through his hair. I've been working too much. How about this weekend we all go somewhere? The lake house maybe? The lake house where he'd taken his blonde mistress 3 weeks ago, according to his credit card statement. Can't, I said. I have a presentation Monday. Reschedule it. Like you reschedule your meetings? The words escaped before I could stop them. His eyes narrowed. What's going on with you lately? Nothing's going on with me. I closed my laptop with deliberate care. Sophie, bed. Now. After she left, Dylan moved closer, perching on the edge of my desk. Talk to me, Ash. You've been different all week. I looked up at him, studying the face I'd loved for 15 years. The slight crow's feet around his eyes, the dimple in his left cheek, the perfectly maintained stubble. I searched for any sign of guilt, any crack in his facade. There was nothing. Different how? I asked. Distant. Cold. He reached for my hand. I let him take it, fighting the urge to pull away. If something's bothering you, would you tell me? I interrupted. If something was bothering you? He blinked. Of course. Promise? I promise. He squeezed my hand. No secrets between us, right? I smiled, and for the first time in our marriage, I understood how easy it was to lie to someone you loved. Right. No secrets. Later, after he'd fallen asleep, I slipped down to Sophie's room. She was still awake, the blue light of her tablet illuminating her face. Mom? She sat up. Are you okay? I sat on the edge of her bed. Why wouldn't I be? Because. She hesitated, then turned her tablet toward me. On the screen was an email draft, addressed to an anonymous account. I found something. About Dad. My blood ran cold. What did you find? His passwords weren't even hard to crack. Her voice trembled. He's been. There's this woman. Stop. I pulled her into my arms, feeling her tears soak through my shirt. Listen to me. Whatever you found, whatever you were going to do, let me handle it. But. Promise me, Sophie. This isn't your burden to carry. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. What are you going to do? I thought about the evidence mounting on my laptop, about Dylan's easy lies over dinner. About the daughter who was too smart to be fooled by either of us. I'm going to protect us, I said. Both of us. But I need time to do it right. She nodded, her expression eerily similar to the one I'd seen in the mirror lately. I can help. I know you can. I kissed her forehead. But for now, just act normal. Can you do that? I learned from the best, she said, and I wasn't sure whether to be proud or heartbroken that my daughter had become such a good actor. The notification popped up on my screen at 3 a.m. Sophie had accessed Dylan's company email. Again. My daughter, the amateur hacker, was getting sloppy with her digital footprints. I reached for my phone to text her, then froze as another alert flashed. File transfer in progress. Multiple documents. Financial records. Damn it, Sophie, I muttered, throwing off my covers. But before I could reach her room, she burst into mine, tablet clutched to her chest. Mom, she whispered, face pale in the darkness. You need to see this. The spreadsheets told a story that made my blood run cold. Regular transfers from the company's Agricultural Development Fund, my project's funding source, to offshore accounts. Falsified reports. Doctored numbers. All traced back to Dylan's executive access codes. He's stealing from your project, Sophie said. That's why he never wanted you to succeed with it. My hands shook as I scrolled through the documents. How did you even find these? He used the same password pattern for everything. Amateur stuff. She perched on my bed, watching me process the information. There's more. About Claire. I looked up sharply. What about her? She works for one of the competing firms. The ones bidding against your project. Sophie pulled up another email thread. But I don't think she knows about the money. Look at their messages, she thinks he's leaving you for her. That they're going to start fresh together. A hollow laugh escaped me. Fresh. With stolen money. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, headlights swept across my bedroom wall. Dylan's car, pulling into the driveway at 3:30 a.m. Delete your traces, I hissed. Now. Go to bed. Sophie's fingers flew across her tablet as she hurried out. I slipped back under the covers, heart pounding, mind racing through possibilities. Minutes later, Dylan stumbled in, reeking of perfume and scotch. You're awake? He squinted at me. Couldn't sleep. Work stress. I watched him undress, this stranger wearing my husband's face. The project deadline's coming up. He paused, one shoe in hand. About that. The board's considering pulling funding. Budget cuts. Really? My voice stayed steady, even as rage burned through my veins. That's not what the quarterly reports showed. Things change fast in business, Ash. You know that. He slid into bed, reaching for me. Maybe it's for the best. You could focus on something else. I let him pull me close, fighting the urge to recoil. Like what? I don't know. Something less demanding. More family-oriented. Family-oriented. Like embezzlement and adultery? I wanted to scream the words, to throw his lies back in his face. Instead, I said, I'll think about it. The next morning, I waited until Dylan left for work before calling the number I'd found in his emails. Hello? A woman's voice, younger than I expected. Claire Mitchell? Yes? Who's this? Someone who thinks you should know the truth about Dylan Parker. My voice remained calm, professional. And about the money he's been stealing from Morton Agricultural Technologies. Silence stretched across the line. Then, I don't know what you're talking about. Check your email in 5 minutes. And Claire? I'd think carefully about your next move. Your firm wouldn't want to be implicated in corporate espionage. I hung up and sent the files, carefully edited to protect Sophie's involvement. Then I called my mother. I need you to take Sophie for a few days, I said when she answered. It's happening, then? Yes. I watched Sophie through the window as she waited for her school bus. Things are about to get messy. Be careful, Ashlyn. Men like Dylan don't take well to losing control. I know. I touched my screen where Sophie's face had been moments before. That's why I need to end this quickly. Before he realizes what's coming. And Sophie? She's stronger than we think. Smarter too. Pride mixed with worry in my chest. She'll understand eventually. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and began composing 2 emails. One to Morton's board of directors, outlining specific concerns about financial discrepancies. Another to Dylan's mistress, offering to meet and compare notes. The endgame was starting. I just hoped I could protect the ones I loved while burning everything else to the ground. The coffee shop buzzed with morning chatter, but Ben's silence spoke volumes as he studied the evidence spread across my tablet. 20 years of friendship meant he could read between the lines of what I wasn't saying. Jesus, Ash. He pushed the tablet back, running a hand through his graying hair. How long have you known? 2 weeks. I wrapped my hands around my untouched latte. Long enough to know it's not just about the affair anymore. The embezzlement makes it criminal. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. You need to go to the police. And then what? Watch Sophie's college fund disappear into legal fees. I shook my head. There has to be another way. Like blackmail? His eyes narrowed. That's not you, Ashlyn. Before I could respond, my phone lit up with a text from Claire, meeting you was a mistake. He explained everything. Stay away from us. Ben read the message over my shoulder. What did you do? Gave her enough rope. I showed him the screenshot I'd sent Claire, Dylan at dinner with another woman, neither of them Claire nor me. Turns out our friend's been playing everyone. Christ. Ben's expression darkened. You're enjoying this, aren't you? The accusation stung because it was true. Maybe I am. Does that make me terrible? It makes you human. He hesitated. But Sophie. My phone buzzed again. Dylan's name flashed on the screen. We need to talk. Now. Come to the office. He knows something's wrong, I said, gathering my things. Claire must have warned him. Ben caught my arm. Don't go alone. I have to. If I bring anyone else, he'll know I'm building a case. I forced a smile. Besides, we're in his corporate office. What's the worst he could do? That's what scares me. Ben stood. Call me when you're done. Promise? Promise. The elevator ride to Dylan's floor felt endless. Through the glass walls, I watched Seattle's skyline blur behind rain clouds. The same view I'd admired when he first brought me here, proud to show off his success. Now every gleaming surface felt like a lie. His secretary's desk was empty. The whole floor seemed deserted, despite it being mid-morning. Dylan waited in his office, standing behind his desk like a king on his throne. Shut the door, he said. I did, noting how his hands trembled slightly as he poured himself a drink. It's 10 a.m., Dylan. Interesting time to meet your ex-boyfriend for coffee, too. Ben's been my friend since before I met you. Right. He took a long sip. Just like Claire's just a colleague? The trap was obvious, but I stepped into it anyway. Is that what she is? She called me. Very upset. Seemed to think I was living some kind of double life. His laugh held no humor. Wonder where she got that idea? Maybe from the same place I got these. I pulled up the financial records on my phone, watching his face. The agricultural fund, Dylan? Really? Color drained from his face. How did you? Does it matter? I moved closer, voice steady, despite my racing heart. What matters is what happens next. Are you threatening me? I'm giving you a choice. The words tasted like ash. Either you come clean to the board about the embezzlement and give me full custody of Sophie, or I take everything to the police. Your career, your reputation, all of it. He set down his glass with exaggerated care. You really think you can prove any of this? I think your girlfriend might help, once she sees the photos of you with her best friend. His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. You vindictive bitch. Let go. I didn't pull away, didn't show fear. You're on camera, remember? No. His smile turned cruel. I'm not. Maintenance day. Systems are down until noon. Funny timing, isn't it? Understanding hit like ice water. This wasn't a confrontation. It was a trap. Ben knows I'm here, I said quickly. Ben knows you're meeting your lying, cheating husband to talk about divorce. Dylan's grip tightened. Who's going to question if things get emotional? I heard the office door click shut behind me. Heels on hardwood. A familiar perfume. Hello, Ashlyn, Claire said. We need to talk about those emails you sent. The bruises on my wrist had faded to a sickly yellow, but I kept my sleeve pulled down during the video call with Sophie. Her face filled my laptop screen, worry lines too deep for a 13-year-old creasing her forehead. Dad keeps calling Grandma's house, she said. He sounds different. Scary different. Don't answer if he calls again. I glanced at my phone, where Ben's latest text glowed, police report filed. Restraining order in process. Just focus on your coding project. Mom. Sophie leaned closer to her camera. What happened in his office? Ben won't tell me anything. Nothing I couldn't handle. The lie tasted bitter, but necessary. I wouldn't tell her how Claire had recorded our confrontation, trying to bait me into admitting to blackmail. How Dylan's grip had left marks that proved useless without security footage. How I'd barely made it to the elevator before my hands started shaking. A notification popped up on my screen, an email from Morton Technologies' board of directors. My heart stopped. I have to go, honey. Love you. Mom, wait. I ended the call and opened the email. The board wanted an emergency meeting. Tomorrow. About financial irregularities in the agricultural fund. My phone rang, Dylan's number. I declined it, but a text followed immediately. You really think they'll believe you over me? I built that company. Another text, Claire's already told them you tried to extort us. Check your email. The second email contained a video clip. My voice, edited and stripped of context, give me full custody. Or I take everything. Your career, your reputation. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, mind racing. Dylan thought he had me cornered, but he'd forgotten something crucial. Something about Sophie's coding project. I dialed Ben. Tell me you didn't do anything stupid, he answered. Define stupid. I pulled up the command prompt on my laptop. Remember that backdoor Sophie found in the company's security system? Ashlyn, no. They're going to bury the embezzlement evidence. Frame me for extortion. Then we fight it legally. You can't. They have Sophie's college fund. Our savings. Everything. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I'm not letting him take anything else from us. At least wait until. A third email arrived, from Claire's personal account. The subject line made my blood run cold. Sophie's father? Attached was a DNA test from 13 years ago. One Dylan had apparently kept all this time. I have to go, I told Ben, and hung up despite his protests. The test results blurred through my tears. All those years of Dylan's subtle comments about Sophie's intelligence, her tech skills, her personality, so different from his. I'd defended our daughter, never suspecting he'd known all along she wasn't his. My phone buzzed again. Dylan, let's talk about Sophie's real father. Better yet, let's tell her. The rage that filled me was cold, clarifying. I opened Sophie's project folder, the one she'd been using to practice her coding. Inside was a program she'd written, designed to track and document system vulnerabilities. A program that had been running, undetected, on Dylan's company laptop for weeks. I typed out my response, check your email. Then I executed Sophie's program, watching as it compiled weeks of data, every fraudulent transaction, every altered record. Every deleted security log. The program hadn't just tracked Dylan's crimes, it had recorded them in real time, creating an unalterable blockchain of evidence. My daughter. My brilliant, protective daughter. I forwarded everything to the board, the SEC, and Dylan's competitors. Then I sent one final email to Claire, attaching photos of Dylan with not one, but 3 other women. Still think I'm the one he's playing? My phone lit up with Dylan's call again. This time, I answered. You really should have paid more attention to Sophie's coding lessons, I said before he could speak. Turns out she inherited her real father's talent for exposing frauds. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, very quietly, Dylan said, "You've just started a war." No, I replied, thinking of Sophie, safe at my mother's house. I've just ended one. The police station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Ben's face as he posted my bail. 3 a.m. and my hand still trembled from being fingerprinted. From Sophie's desperate voicemails I couldn't answer while in custody. Fraud, extortion, and corporate espionage. Ben's voice was flat as we walked to his car. Dylan's really outdone himself. He had it all planned. My voice sounded distant, hollow. The board meeting was a trap. They were waiting with security, with lawyers. Everything I sent them, he'd already twisted into evidence against me. We'll fight it. With what? I laughed, the sound bordering on hysteric. He froze our accounts. The house, the cars, everything's in his name. Even Sophie's college fund. Ben's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Sophie's safe at your mother's. For now. My phone buzzed, another text from Claire, he's filing for emergency custody. Says you're unstable, dangerous. I'm sorry. Sorry. Like that word could fix anything. We pulled up to Ben's apartment, and I finally asked the question burning in my throat, did you know? About what? Sophie. I turned to face him. The DNA test. Did you know she was yours? The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. 4. 5. I suspected, he finally said. The timing. But you were so happy with Dylan. I couldn't. 13 years. My voice cracked. 13 years of watching her grow up calling another man Dad. Of watching him use her as a weapon against me. And you just watched. Ash. Don't. I got out of the car, legs barely holding me up. I need to call Sophie. But when I tried, the call wouldn't connect. Blocked number. I tried my mother's house. Same thing. Another text from Claire, Dylan's at your mother's. He's taking Sophie home. The world tilted sideways. Ben caught my arm as I stumbled. He can't, I whispered. The restraining order only covers you. Ben was already pulling up his phone. And with the charges against you. My phone rang, Dylan. Where are you? His voice was smooth, controlled. Victory wrapped in concern. Sophie's asking for you. Let me talk to her. I don't think that's wise, given your mental state. Breaking into corporate servers? Stealing company data? What were you thinking? I was thinking about protecting our daughter. The words tasted like ash. Our daughter? He laughed softly. We both know that's not true. Don't worry, though. I won't tell her. Not unless you force my hand. What do you want? Simple. Drop everything. Sign a confession, taking full responsibility for the fraud. Give me full custody. In return, I'll make sure you avoid jail time. Maybe even arrange supervised visits, eventually. Ben was watching me, his face a mirror of my own pain. The truth about Sophie hung between us like a physical thing. You have an hour to decide, Dylan continued. After that, I start telling Sophie exactly why her mother can't be trusted. Starting with who her real father is. The line went dead. I slid down Ben's apartment wall, the cold concrete grounding me as my world imploded. Everything I'd done to protect Sophie had only given Dylan more weapons to use against us. We need to call the police, Ben said. And tell them what? That the respected executive is keeping his daughter away from his unstable, criminal wife? My laugh turned into something like a sob. Face it, Ben. He's one. No. Ben crouched in front of me. Look at me, Ash. We're not done. I can't lose her. You won't. He pulled out his phone again. But we need help. Real help. Who? Claire Mitchell, he said, showing me a new text. She wants to meet. Says she has proof Dylan set you up. Proof that could save both you and Sophie. I stared at the message, hope warring with suspicion. It's probably another trap. Probably. Ben helped me up. But right now, it's the only play we have left. I thought of Sophie, scared and confused, trapped in Dylan's web of lies. Of 13 years of secrets about to explode. Make the call, I said. Claire chose the same coffee shop where this had all started. She sat alone, her designer purse on the table like a shield, hands wrapped around an untouched latte. No sign of a trap, but Ben still insisted on watching from his car outside. He's going to destroy you, she said as I sat down. He's already convinced the board you're unstable. Dangerous. Yet here you are. She pushed a USB drive across the table. Everything you need. The real financial records, recordings of him planning the setup, proof the DNA test was fabricated. I stared at her. Fabricated? Sophie is yours and Ben's. Dylan's known for years, but he needed leverage. Insurance. She laughed bitterly. Just like he needed me to play the desperate mistress. To help him frame you. My phone buzzed, Dylan, taking Sophie to the lake house for the weekend. Last chance to take the deal. Why are you helping me now? Because, Claire's voice caught. I'm pregnant. And I've seen what he does to children he claims to love. The coffee shop door chimed. Dylan walked in, Sophie trailing behind him. My heart stopped. Well, Dylan said, sliding into the seat beside Claire. This is cozy. Sophie's eyes were red-rimmed, her shoulders hunched. When she saw me, she started forward, but Dylan's hand shot out, gripping her arm. Dad, she whispered. You're hurting me. Sophie, I kept my voice steady, go wait with Uncle Ben in the car. She's not going anywhere. Dylan's smile was razor-sharp. Claire, the drive? Claire's hand trembled as she reached for the USB, but I was faster. I snatched it and stood, putting distance between us. It's over, Dylan. The real records, the recordings, everything's here. You mean these recordings? He pulled out his phone, played a clip of Claire and me discussing blackmail. Expertly edited from our previous conversations. Or maybe the financial records showing your embezzlement? Stop it, Sophie suddenly said. Just stop lying. Dylan's grip on her arm tightened. Sophie, honey. I sent the original email, she blurted out. About you and Claire. I found everything, the money, the affairs, all of it. And I recorded you. Every conversation, every meeting, every threat. It's all backed up to Mom's secure server. The color drained from Dylan's face. You're lying. Check your laptop. Sophie's voice shook but held firm. The program I wrote for my coding project? It wasn't just tracking your crimes. It was documenting them. Timestamped, authenticated, impossible to fake. Claire stood abruptly. I think that's my cue to leave. Sit down, Dylan snarled, but she was already walking away, heels clicking rapidly on the tile. Let her go, I said. Let Sophie go. It's done. Nothing's done. He pulled Sophie closer. I still have custody. Your word against mine. Actually, Ben's voice came from behind us. 2 police officers flanked him. You have multiple witnesses to assault of a minor, plus Sophie's testimony and evidence. Want to try for kidnapping too? Dylan's grip loosened. Sophie wrenched free, running to me. I held her tight, feeling her shoulders shake. You can't prove anything, Dylan said, but his voice wavered. Maybe not. I handed the USB drive to one of the officers. But the SEC and FBI can. They're very interested in both sets of books, the real ones, and the ones you tried to pin on me. Mom? Sophie looked up at me. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. About any of it. Don't be. I smoothed her hair back, seeing Ben's eyes in her face for the first time. You were protecting me, just like I was protecting you. As the officers led Dylan away, Sophie turned to Ben. So. Should I call you Dad now? Ben's laugh was shaky. Let's start with lunch. We have a lot to talk about. I watched them walk ahead of me, already deep in conversation about coding and security protocols. My revenge had cost me a marriage built on lies, but it had given me something better: truth, freedom, and a family forged in honesty instead of manipulation. Sometimes losing everything was the only way to gain what mattered most. The autumn wind carried the scent of fresh earth as I walked the rows of our first smart farming prototype. Solar-powered sensors blinked among the crops, Sophie's coding bringing life to my agricultural tech designs. Our legacy, built from the ashes of Dylan's betrayal. The investors are impressed. Ben appeared beside me, tablet in hand. Full funding for the next phase. Your mother's farm will be the first full implementation. Sophie will be thrilled. I touched a sensor, remembering how she'd improved my original design. She's already talking about neural networks for crop prediction. She gets that from you. Ben's voice held a note of pride he was still learning to express. The brilliance, the determination. The stubbornness, I added, making him laugh. My phone buzzed, a news alert about Dylan's sentencing. 8 years for fraud and embezzlement. Claire had testified against him, her unborn child another victim of his manipulations. Sometimes I wondered if she'd known about Sophie all along, if that's why she'd finally chosen to help us. Still following the case? Ben asked. Last time. I deleted the alert. Sophie asked about visiting him. What did you tell her? That it's her choice. I turned to face him. Just like it's her choice whether to call you Dad. We can't protect her from everything. No, he agreed. But we can teach her to protect herself. Inside the monitoring station, Sophie sat surrounded by screens, her fingers flying over keyboards. She'd insisted on coming to work with me instead of starting high school, real-world experience, she'd argued. Besides, I've already completed most of their computer science curriculum. She looked up as we entered. Mom. The pattern recognition algorithm caught something weird in Sector 7. Show me. As she pulled up the data, I studied her face, so like Ben's when she was focused, but with my drive, my need to understand everything. She'd used those same traits to expose Dylan's crimes, to protect me when I thought I was protecting her. See? She pointed to an anomaly in the soil composition readings. If we adjust the irrigation here. Sophie, I interrupted gently. There's something we need to discuss. She stiffened. Is this about the letter? From Dylan? Ben and I exchanged looks. You knew? I monitor all our communications. She shrugged, but her voice wavered. Security protocols, remember? Honey. He wants to apologize. She turned back to her screens. Says he's changed. Wants to make amends. What do you want? I asked. I want. She took a deep breath. I want to show him this. What we built without him. How strong we are without him. Pride and pain mingled in my chest. My daughter, turning revenge into redemption, betrayal into growth. Speaking of building things, Ben said, breaking the tension. Your mom's funding came through. Want to help design the neural network? Sophie's eyes lit up. Really? Can we start now? After lunch, I said firmly. Family tradition, remember? As they gathered their things, still debating algorithm specifics, I looked out over our test field. The sensors blinked like stars fallen to earth, each one representing a choice, a consequence, a step toward healing. Dylan had tried to bury us, never realizing we were seeds. Now we'd grown into something stronger, something true. A family built on choice rather than obligation, on understanding rather than control. "Mom?" Sophie called from the doorway. "You coming?" "Right behind you." I touched the sensor one last time, feeling its steady pulse beneath my fingers. Like a heartbeat, like hope, like the future we'd coded line by line, choice by choice, truth by truth. Some would call it revenge, this rising from the ashes of Dylan's destruction. But standing here, watching Ben and Sophie head toward the car, their heads bent together over some new idea, I knew better. This wasn't revenge. This was restoration. And we were just beginning.
There's a baby in the garden. In the middle of the night, my 4-year-old daughter woke me up. When I went to check, there indeed was a crying baby in the garden. My husband and I just looked at each other, astonished. Then, my daughter said something even more mysterious. "This kid says she's my sister."
Yay!
Next to my smiling daughter, my husband turned pale and started sweating. I didn't miss that. I thought, could this be? It was the beginning of a tumultuous development. I am Megan, 32 years old. A family of 3, my husband Wayne, 3 years my senior, and our 4-year-old daughter, Angela. Megan, it seems Angela started saying strange things again. It was a common occurrence for my husband to sigh with exasperation as he looked at Angela and me. It turns out my daughter seems to have a mysterious ability to talk to animals and babies. I didn't believe it at first either, but it doesn't seem like it can just be a coincidence. For instance, one day, after my daughter had been whispering something to the neighbor's dog, she suddenly looked up with sparkling eyes. "Hey, Mom, the dog says the ice cream vendor is coming soon. I want to eat ice cream." As I was puzzled by her strange words, the ice cream vendor's truck passed by, and I was startled. Also, the day we visited a relative with a 6-month-old baby. My daughter was quietly talking with the baby and giggling. This baby says he hid something shiny under the sofa. Skeptical, I peeked under the sofa and there it was, a ring that our relative had cherished, but thought it was lost. I could give countless such examples, but my husband never believed in our daughter's ability. "Megan, Angela, don't say such things to others. It's embarrassing." But I believed that my daughter really had a mysterious power. I thought, but I don't want Angela to be seen as weird by others and be misunderstood or hurt. With that in mind, I had made a promise not to mention it outside our home. Angela was a well-behaved child, and she had kept my request properly. At that time, my husband, who often traveled for work, was away from home about 3 days a week. Therefore, while working, I was mostly raising our overly energetic daughter alone. It was honestly hard, but when my husband was home, I made sure he could relax. The incident began a year ago. Suddenly, $5,000 was withdrawn from our shared bank account. It was the money we had been saving for Angela's education. Shocked, I confronted my husband when he returned from work. "Wayne, what did you use our important money for?" When I pressed him, he shrugged apologetically. "Forgive me. I had an accident on a business trip and suddenly needed money." "What? Are you okay? Did you get hurt?"
Yeah.
"But the car was slightly damaged, so I sent it for repairs. It'll be unusable for about 3 days." Indeed, his car was not in our driveway. I thought, if Wayne is safe, then the money is okay, I guess. I simply told my husband to return the money to our shared account later, deciding not to blame him. However, from that day on, his behavior became increasingly strange. One day he said, "I had trouble at work." And on another day, "I lent money to a friend in need." He kept finding reasons to borrow money from me. "Please. I'll definitely return it next month." Eventually, I trusted him and continued to give him $500 from my wallet every month. But with each passing day, my dissatisfaction with him only grew. There's no sign of the money being returned. How long should I wait? "I'll return it on payday next month." That's what you said last month, too? I felt brushed off and inadvertently let out a deep sigh. Besides her allowance, I was lending him money. But he always complained that he didn't have enough. "I can't lend you any more. Return the $5,000 you took from the account first." "But now's not a good time for me. If I can't borrow from you, then I have no choice but to go to a loan shark." Wait a minute, you're joking, right? Faced with such a statement, I couldn't refuse and reluctantly took out money from my wallet again. I thought, something's definitely wrong. There can't be work troubles or friends in need of money every month. My distrust of my husband gradually grew, and I started having stomach pains from the stress. During one such night, Mom, wake up. There's a baby in the garden." "Angela? That can't be. Are you dreaming?" I tried to go back to sleep, but my daughter persistently shook me awake. "What's all this noise?" "It's annoying." While my husband was grumpily scolding Angela, I clearly heard a baby crying. "What? That can't be. Isn't it just a neighbor's baby? The baby is saying that she is in the garden. We have to go quickly." Saying that, our daughter ran out of the bedroom. My husband and I followed her as she headed towards the veranda with a view of the garden. The crying grew louder. When we reached the veranda, illuminated by the light, there was a baby wrapped in a blanket in our garden. Who would leave a baby in our garden? Even as a prank, this is too much. While we were shocked and flustered, our daughter was jumping up and down in joy. "This kid says she's my sister."
Yay!
"What? Stop saying weird things." I was taken aback, but my husband scolded our daughter loudly, perhaps too much. Yet Angela, unfazed, hands on her hips, looked up at him. "It's true. She's my sister." Defiant, our daughter spoke back to her father with no intention of backing down. I was just standing there, stunned, watching them argue. Just then, my husband's phone, which was in his pocket, vibrated. I saw his eyes widen and his face turn pale as he looked at the screen. I thought, what was that expression about? But this was no time for such thoughts. "Hey, we need to call the police." "No, wait. Let's bring the baby inside first. It's cold out, and it's night, right?" Despite it being normal to report this to the police in such situations, I still felt something odd about my husband's behavior. While suspicious, I picked up the baby, brought her inside, and wrapped her gently in a blanket, soothing her. If my daughter's mysterious abilities and her words were to be believed, then there's no doubt this baby is her sister. However, I haven't been pregnant or given birth since Angela. That means... I thought, I don't want to believe it, but given Wayne's suspicious behavior so far, it's too fishy. I decided to uncover the truth while keeping a normal demeanor so as not to alert my husband. "I'll take her to the police in the morning." Following my husband's words, I agreed to keep the baby at our house for the night. I have work tomorrow, and this strange baby showing up has ruined my mood. I'm going to bed first. Take care of that kid. Without taking responsibility himself, Wayne retreated to the bedroom as if fleeing. Usually, I would be angry, but this time, I saw it as an opportunity and completed all the necessary preparations while he was asleep. I thought, all that's left is to reveal the truth. Despite my thoughts, I couldn't hide my inner turmoil, and my body trembled with anxiety. Sensing my distress, my daughter gently held my hand. "It's okay, Mom. I am on your side." "Thank you, Angela." Perhaps my daughter doesn't understand what's happening between my husband and me. Still, I gathered my resolve for Angela's sake and faced my husband head-on. Thus, the long night ended, and we greeted the morning. As soon as he woke up, my husband was visibly panicked. "I've been suddenly called into work. I'll go to the police when I get back, so look after her during the day." After saying that, he left early in the morning without even having breakfast. "Take care, see you." As always, I sent off my husband with a smile. Once Wayne left the house, got into his car, and drove off, I immediately took action. First, I took my daughter and the baby to my parents' home about an hour away by car. Then took out my phone. In fact, while my husband was asleep, I unlocked his phone using his fingerprint and set up a GPS tracker. Relying on that, I drove to the location. I arrived at an old wooden apartment building. Not sure which room it was, I walked slowly, listening at each door until I heard a man and a woman arguing in a room on the first floor. "So why did you leave the baby at our place? And what was that message about?" The voice scolding the other was my husband's familiar tone. Just as the words said. I wrote, "Take care of the child." Didn't you read the message properly? Or do you lack comprehension? The woman's voice, defiant against Wayne, echoed out to the hallway. I listened for a while, but their argument showed no signs of ending. I thought, this is definitely the room. Convinced, I grabbed the doorknob of the room where the voices were coming from. The door, apparently unlocked, swung open, and my husband looked at me in shock. "Me, Megan. Why are you here?" "Hello, Lisa. My husband often mentions how much he owes you." Ignoring my flustered husband, I politely greeted his affair partner and closed the front door. The woman named Lisa, surprised by my sudden appearance, seemed quite shaken. "Huh? How do you know my name?" "I won't say who, but a certain little girl told me about you." In fact, I had used my daughter Angela's mysterious ability to hear most of the circumstances from the baby. So, Wayne met Lisa while she was working at a bar during a business entertainment. And they got along well enough to have a child? How do you know all that? What, did you hire a detective or something? I can't believe it. In stark contrast to my visibly disturbed husband, his affair partner seemed emboldened, almost defiant. "Wayne, have you been taking money from me all this time for the baby's birth and upbringing costs?" "No, that's..." "Not only that, but you've been living with Lisa?" In the entrance, there were sandals and shoes that seemed to belong to my husband. As I went to pick them up, Wayne quickly snatched them from me. "Your suspicious behavior is the best proof of all, Wayne." "Oh no." As I glared at him, my husband trembled and turned pale. Wayne had used the $5,000 withdrawn from our savings for Lisa's hospital stay and cesarean section. And he had been paying her a monthly child support of $500. Moreover, pretending to be on business trips. He had been staying at her place 3 days a week, making a fool of me all this while. As I mentioned this, my husband was so shocked that he stood with his mouth agape. And do you know the real reason behind this baby chaos is? Because Lisa is getting engaged to a venture company president? What? So, you left the baby at our house because she became a burden, right? Lisa had left the baby in our garden late at night and sent a message to my husband. I had seen that message myself when I unlocked his phone. He probably didn't expect that I would know all this. My husband instinctively reached for the pocket where he had put his phone, looking startled. Is that why you desperately tried to stop me from calling the police? How much do you know? Sweat broke out on Wayne's forehead, like a frog stared down by a snake. Meanwhile, Lisa began to nervously glance at her watch. Can you please take your marital spat elsewhere? I have a date soon, so can you both leave? Oh, speaking as if it's none of your business. After meddling with someone else's husband, do you think you won't face any consequences? And to think you'd abandon your own child. I mean, it was just a fling with Wayne, and getting pregnant was a mistake. But now I'm resetting my life by marrying a president. My husband, too, was stunned by her selfish rationale. That's not something you can just accept. What are you thinking, pushing the baby onto me? Stop complaining, it's your fault for getting me pregnant. Now hurry up and put your shoes on. Lisa continued to push my husband physically, not letting him say anything. Lisa, you are the father, so you should take responsibility and raise her. Your daughter will be happy to have a sister, right? As a parent myself, her remarks were unforgivable, and I clenched my fists tightly. Just when I thought I might slap her, I heard a car engine. I opened the front door and looked out onto the street to see a luxury car driving towards the apartment. Then, the car stopped right next to the apartment, and a man got out saying, Lisa, you weren't at our meeting place, so I came to pick you up. Oh no. You came already. From the panicked state of Lisa, it was clear this man was her new fiancé. The president of the venture company. That's when an idea struck me. Hello there. Actually, my husband has been under Lisa's care. I greeted the fiancé brightly, and he looked confused. Wait, what are you doing? As Lisa hurried to stop me while trying to put on her shoes, I quickly approached the man. Actually, last night, Lisa left her child, born between her and my husband, in our garden. So we came together to talk about the situation. Before Lisa could cover my mouth, I spilled the beans. The fiancé was shocked and looked at her suspiciously, saying, I was told Lisa was single. It's all lies. Don't believe a word she says. Lisa was sweating and frantically making excuses. But the venture company president wanted to hear more details, so I revealed everything I knew. During this, Lisa tried to deflect, but I overpowered her and told everything. What kind of woman are you? Then Lisa's fiancé coldly said to Lisa, I'm sorry, but I can't deal with a liar like you. Don't contact me ever again. With that, he got into his car. As a president, he would naturally want to avoid such scandals. Wait, there's more to it. Let me explain, please. Lisa tried to cling to the car, but I stopped her. And her fiancé drove off without even rolling down the window. Oh no. My rosy future as a president's wife. She collapsed to her knees, then suddenly looked up at Wayne. Hey, Wayne, sorry about this, let's stay on good terms, okay? Let's take back the child from this woman and live happily as a family of 3 again. She leaned against my husband, batting her eyes and acting sweetly. I thought, what a person, it's not like I stole anything. She left the child in our yard on her own. As I stood agape at her sudden change of attitude, Wayne, finally fed up with being manipulated by Lisa, scowled and glared at her. Don't mess around. I can't deal with you anymore. As my husband firmly pushed away the woman clinging to him, his affair partner bore a demonic expression. What? What do you mean? I'm offering to make up with you. Enraged, Lisa scratched my husband's face with her nails, sparking a violent scuffle between them. I watched in silence for a while, but there was no end in sight. I thought, neither of them is better than the other. A deep sigh escaped my lips as I decided I wanted no further part in their quarrel. I deliberately clapped my hands loudly to make my presence felt. All right, enough. Stop it right there. Exasperated, I intervened to break them up. In any case, I will be claiming property division. Wayne, you can expect a divorce to be part of that package. Come on, spare me. Don't talk about separating. You must be joking. I don't have money to pay her. They both turned on me, but as I looked on coldly, they gradually calmed down. Megan, I am truly, truly sorry. I'll break it off with this woman, so please, cheer up. I'm not just sulking. I'm done with you, don't you get it? Don't say that, let's talk, just the two of us. No way. After what had happened, there was no way I could forgive him. I stood firm in my resolve. Ma'am, I'll raise the baby myself, so can you just forget about the money, please? Raising your own child is a basic parental duty. But I don't want to hear excuses. My voice filled with anger, and finally, my husband and his mistress knelt down and begged for forgiveness. Observing them, I realized how completely my feelings for my husband had cooled. You should regret what you've done. Pay the property division, even if you have to borrow the money. I can't stand the thought of never seeing Angela again. You brought this on yourself. Don't come any closer. As he was supposed to be kneeling, my husband suddenly looked up and gripped my hand tightly. He looked at me with a face full of sorrow. Listen, Megan. If we divorce, Angela will be sad too. Using our daughter as a shield is exactly what I despise about you. I'll make sure she forgets she ever had a father like you. As I coldly stated this, his grip loosened, and I took the opportunity to pull my hand away. What am I supposed to do if you leave me? Survive on your own strength. I'll send the divorce papers to this address later. As I walked away from the two still kneeling at the entrance, I noticed a crowd had gathered around the apartment. I thought, the door was left open, so they heard everything, huh? The apartment was overflowing with residents and neighbors whispering. Did you hear about the affair, and how disgraceful? With the whole spectacle witnessed by so many onlookers, Lisa would find it hard to continue living in this apartment. Honestly, I couldn't care less about what would happen to her. I quickly left the scene, drove my car, and returned to my parents' home, where I had left my daughter and the baby. Later, I received a total of $50,000 as property division from the two of them. Furthermore, after divorcing my husband and gaining custody of our daughter, I decided to raise my daughter at my parents' home. Thus, I entrusted my parents with childcare during the day while I went to work. Moreover, since Lisa refused to raise the baby in the garden, I decided to take the child in myself. Lisa's complete lack of responsibility continued to astound me. Eventually, my husband and Lisa, unable to endure the gossip of the neighbors, moved away from that apartment. But they constantly fought, soon separated. And I heard through the grapevine that both were chased by debt collectors. The baby's name is Mia. She is growing up healthy and strong. Angela is thrilled to have a little sister. Mia is happy to have a kind mom too. I resolved to cherish and raise these two children I had been blessed with. I am Sarah Brown. I am 28 years old. I work in the General Affairs Department of a fairly large trading company. My boyfriend is Alex Johnson, 2 years my senior. I met him at a club in college, and we have been dating for 8 years. We started considering marriage about 4 to 5 years ago, and both of us have been slowly saving up for it. On my birthday this year, he finally proposed. At a fancy restaurant, enjoying delicious food and wine. Alex snapped his fingers. Then the waiter nodded, the lights dimmed. A spotlight shone only on our table, and he pulled a small box from his inner pocket. Gently opened it. I had such girlish fantasies, but in reality, we were on a camping trip, our shared hobby. In front of the campfire, his favorite pork soup was simmering. And I was drinking my favorite strong canned drink. As the wood in the fire crackled, he rummaged through a bag, pulled out a small box. "This is for you." "What is this?" "It's a ring." "A ring?"
"Yeah."
"Marry me." "It's about time we made it official, right?" "I suppose it is about time, yes, I agree." "All right, it's decided then."
"Yeah."
Cheers. I was quite drunk at that time. Later, I thought maybe something more could have been done. But such celebrity-like actions wouldn't suit us. Perhaps this type of proposal was just right for us. Sometime after the proposal day, Alex came to greet my parents. "Oh, I'm so nervous." "Think of this as the first challenge and do your best. It's for us after all." "Well, today is my challenge, but next time it's your turn."
"Yeah. Yeah."
I'm fully prepared. I'll take today's Alex as a reference. You are cheeky as ever. Blame yourself for falling in love with such a woman. Look, there's my house. All right. I'll put my spirit into it. That's good, but make sure you're well-groomed too. Look, your tie. Saying that, I straightened and tightened his tie. I felt a bit happy, like I was already his wife. But that's a secret from him. My parents' house is a detached house in the suburbs. It has only 4 rooms, but it has a fairly large garden. My father has always loved the outdoors and met my mother while mountain climbing. That influenced me to also enjoy the outdoors, and camping became my hobby. I think it's a regular family. Currently, my father is retired but working at a relative's company. I was excited to join, but it turned out to be a slack job. But getting paid for this, my life is easy and carefree. He even jokes like that. Well, both of my parents are healthy and cheerful, which I tell myself is a good thing. When we arrived at the house, both parents greeted us at the entrance. Alex was still nervous, stuttering even his own name, which he must have said hundreds of times in his life. "Nice to meet you. I'm Alex Johnson." Still, he firmly told my parents, "I would like to marry Sarah." I fell for him all over again, seeing his resolve. My father grinned and said, "Alex, is this really okay for you? If you're fine with this, then by all means, go ahead." What does he mean by this? My father has always been like that. My mother also said, "Sarah is getting married, huh? Once you marry, I'll be very sad." I will be sad without Sarah when I eat salads, get it? She often made a joke song like that. I was at a loss for words. What are they saying, my parents? So, Alex quickly relaxed. And what was supposed to be just a greeting turned into joining us for dinner and then a party. And eventually they were telling him to stay overnight. However, when my mother called Alex's house to say he would stay over, Alex's father answered, "We appreciate the offer, but we must decline. Staying overnight at an unknown house suddenly, and then being potentially charged for something, we can't handle that." Like that, he talked rudely to her. If I remember right, I have heard that Mr. Johnson is the president of a quite large company. Charged for what? Well, I am a president, which means Alex is the son of a president. We often deal with people who try to extort money, which is troublesome. I don't want to associate with such poor, begging characters. Are you saying we are those poor beggars? Her voice was tinged with anger. there is that possibility. All right, I will tell Alex to go home then. Yes, do that please. My mother was furious, exclaiming, "Who do you think he is? He had such a terrible attitude. What's wrong?" It was awful. I offered kindness by inviting Alex to stay over. But he accused us of extorting money. Then Alex came over. I'm sorry. My parents were once scammed, so they often doubt people's kindness. It's not for you to apologize, Alex. Well, we'll build a good relationship slowly from now. I had a good time today. Take good care of Sarah. My father patted Alex on the shoulder as he apologized. Ultimately, he didn't stay overnight and went back home. At that time, I didn't yet know the real character of his father. And then, it was my turn. Alex's father had built his fortune as an entrepreneur in a single generation. He took a small ironworks passed down from his parents and, through excellent management, turned it into a large machinery manufacturer. Of course, his family home was luxurious. Surrounded by high walls, it was a 3-story reinforced concrete building. Although it was a private house. Seeing such a magnificent house made me feel inferior. Now it's you who are nervous. Alex joked around. Of course, I get nervous too. Look, there it is. Make sure you're well groomed. Yes, thank you. Remaining nervous, I entered the house, greeted Alex's mother who welcomed us, and was shown to the living room. There, Mr. Johnson was seated. Urged by Miss Johnson, I took a seat in front of him. Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Sarah Brown. I am getting married to Alex. It's a pleasure to meet you. Oh, I'm Robert Johnson, Alex's father. Sorry to trouble you coming all this way today. It's futile to say not to be nervous, but try to relax. Yes, thank you. Meeting Alex's father for the first time. He seemed a bit stern and somewhat in a bad mood. Let's cut to the chase. What's your purpose? Purpose, you mean? I'm the president of a large company. As you can see, I have a vast fortune. Is that your goal? I was taken aback. Purpose. The only purpose of marriage I think of is because I love Alex and want to build a happy home together. Yet here he is, conjuring up some far-fetched ulterior motive. No, I haven't thought about anything like that at all. No offense, but what are your parents doing now? My father has retired and then re-employed at a cousin's company, where he is working. I am not quite sure what he does, but he is working happily. My mother is a homemaker and is living well. Hearing this, Mr. Johnson leaned back in his chair with a dismissive air, causing me to frown. I see, but from what I hear, it doesn't sound like a very wealthy life. What is your job? I work in general affairs at a major trading company in New York. General affairs, not much chance for advancement there. Well, yes, that's true. So, you're planning to rely on Alex and me after getting married? Huh? I inadvertently let out a strange noise at his words. What is this man talking about? At that point, something clicked in my mind. I no longer felt like being polite and friendly. What do you mean by that? Mr. Johnson looked down on me and said. Exactly what I said. Your family is poor, and you're scheming to marry my wealthy son to climb the social ladder, right? Your parents also want a son-in-law they can depend on for money to enjoy their old age. Insulting not just me but also my parents? That's intolerable. What did you say? I couldn't help but raise my voice. There's a limit to how much you can belittle people. I could feel my face flushing with anger. Even Alex intervened. Dad, that's too much. Her parents are good people. They welcomed me kindly when I visited to greet them. They're not the type to think about climbing the social ladder or depending on someone. However, his father overpowered the conversation. Be quiet. You're naive, son. Let me handle this. Then let me say something. I cut into their argument. Our family is poor. Sure, we're not rich compared to your family. But we live a decent, average life. And please don't speak ill of my parents. I respect them, and they are honorable people. Oh, calm down, Sarah. Alex tried to intervene, seeing my agitation, but I cut him off just like his father. You, be quiet. At my harsh words, Mr. Johnson glared at me and said, when I say poor, I mean families with less money than ours. Marriage won't work if both parties aren't on the same level. People without money will always expect those with money to provide for them. That's why you will definitely end up doing that too. Am I wrong? You might say it's not like that now, but it will turn out to be true eventually. This Mr. Johnson. Jumping to conclusions. Something in me snapped. Then, that's enough. I understand very well. Please find a wealthy match by yourself. Excuse me. I stood up. Yes, do that. Hey, see her out, she's leaving. Clean this room and entrance after she's gone. While Alex and his mother were flustered, I didn't look back and walked out of the house. Wait a minute. Alex hurried after me. I shouted back in indignation. No. I've had enough. What about that father? Looking down on people like they are beggars, that's the worst. He was truly panicking in response to my fury. Let's try again. Dad was just in a bad mood today. Enough. Why should I be subjected to such things? I wish he would stop belittling people. Calm down, let's just sit and have some tea. Cooling down was the last thing I felt like doing right now. Sorry, but I'm just not in the mood. I'm going home today. Please don't contact me for a while. Sarah. I shook off a clinging Alex and went home alone. After that, he called and emailed me numerous times, but I ignored them. On the day I went home angry, I told my parents everything as soon as I entered the living room. That's a bit harsh. Does my family really look that poor? He said with a face like he was crushing a bitter bug. My mother was appalled. That's terrible. Alex was such a nice person. But this is even worse than that phone call before. So, what about you? Do you think it's okay to break up with Alex? No. I mean, I still like Alex, and I do think about marrying him. I see. Why don't you take a cooling off period and then go see him again? If things still get complicated, I can step in too. Really? Yes, for my dear daughter. It's no big deal. My father was kind and reassuring. Hearing his words, my mother advised. It seems like they don't know much about us, so make sure you talk to them properly. Convinced by my parents, I decided to meet Alex's parents again. I resumed contact with Alex and asked him to arrange another meeting with his parents. He was pleased and quickly set it up. The gong for round 2 sounded. The opponent is formidable. Am I Don Quixote heading towards a giant windmill, or a righteous hero defeating a villain? The visit to Alex's house was set for Saturday on the weekend. If it were a final battle, it would be on a Friday, but for me, it was Saturday. Finally, Saturday arrived. I was restless from the morning, staring at the clock and waiting for the appointed time. When the time came, I met up with Alex and we headed to his parents' house. Entering the house, Mr. Johnson was sitting in the living room just like last time. Hello, it's been a while. I greeted him. Mr. Johnson still had that bothered look in his eyes. What, you came again? Yes, giving up is not in my nature. I replied cheerfully. Naturally, his attitude did not change. No matter how many times you come, my feelings won't change, so stop wasting your time. No, that's not going to work for me. I have my own stubbornness and pride. Hearing this, his annoyed demeanor shifted to one of resignation. Do whatever you want. So, do you have anything to say? I repeated my request for marriage. Yes, please allow me to marry Alex. No. I will not let my Alex marry a poor person. The expected response came. As I've said many times, we are not poor. And just how rich are you to call people poor? Now, the counterattack began. I threw the question right back at him. What? I took over my father's company, which had 20 employees, and grew it to include associated companies with 2,000 employees. That's 100 times bigger, isn't it? There's no way I am not rich, the president of such a respected company. Oh really, and? Are you mocking me? Our sales went from $1 million a year to over $100 million now. Isn't that the company's story? That's not your money, is it? Yes, the company is big, not you. I hurled back what I had thought since the time I stormed out in anger. Struck where it hurt, he began to shout loudly. What are you trying to say? Stop belittling people. If you want to convince me, prove that you are richer than me. Is money the only measure of a person? That's wrong. A person's worth is not measured by money. As I fought back, his voice grew even louder. That's something poor people would say. If you want money that badly, just say it. I'll give you the money, but never come to our house again. That sounds exactly like something a nouveau riche would say. It suits you. Hey, Sarah. Dad, stop it, it's embarrassing. Seeing both his father and me getting heated, Alex stepped in to stop us. You be quiet. No, this is originally a matter between Sarah and me. Shut up. I won't be satisfied until I make this poor person understand my greatness. As Mr. Johnson got increasingly agitated, I also showed no signs of backing down. Exactly, I won't be satisfied until I give this ignorant man a piece of my mind. I won't marry him until this is settled. Seriously, we came to announce our marriage, why has it turned into this? Alex was at his wit's end. What an impudent girl. I want to see what her parents are like. Oh? That's how it is? Then, I'll meet your request. Next time we meet, I'll bring my parents. Yes, bring them. I want to see the faces of the parents who raised such an impudent daughter. Surely, they must be just as rude as her. With that, Mr. Johnson scoffed. How could someone like Alex come from a parent like you? It must be Ms. Johnson's excellent genes. Oh my, I've been complimented. Thank you, Sarah. Ms. Johnson was delighted. Hey. Why are you getting happy? After scolding his wife, Mr. Johnson turned to me and said, Enough, you're not worth talking to. I'll have a thorough discussion when your parents come. A daughter like you doesn't belong in this house. What outrageous words. However, Alex got angry before I did. How could you say something so terrible? I don't consider you a father anymore. I'm going to disown you and sever our familial ties. Then, should I divorce him? He's always saying such awful things, and I don't want to be with him anymore. Ms. Johnson said it nonchalantly. When I got home, I told my parents what had happened that day. After hearing everything, my father sighed and said, Is that so? Well, if that's what they want, I'll meet them as they wish. Exactly, you should tell them off. But, I'd like to meet Ms. Johnson. From what I hear, she doesn't seem like a stranger. You coming along might complicate things, so you better not go.
Oh no.
But I want to go. My mother started looking forward to becoming friends with Ms. Johnson. I put a stop to that. No way. Mom, your pace would dampen my anger. Oh, and here I am thinking about Sarah. My mother pretended to cry, frustrated. By the way, what was Alex's father's name again? I think it was Robert.
Yeah.
Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson? Robert. Did you say Robert Johnson? My father pondered the name, seeming puzzled. It was a bit curious, and I asked him as I nodded along. Yes, that's right. Dad, do you know him? No, but something is nagging at me. I can't quite place it. My father continued to ponder. Oh dear, have you gone senile? My mother joked. Oh. That's right, it's that guy, that bastard. It seemed he finally remembered. He knows him? The world is vast yet small, I thought, surprised by the coincidence. What, Dad, you know him? Well, sort of. Now, Sarah, could you contact Mr. Johnson for me? Sure, is next Saturday okay? Yes, that's fine. Also, I'll be a bit late, so you go ahead first, okay? Huh? Aren't you coming with me? I had thought he would be coming with me, so I was a bit surprised to hear he wouldn't. The main character makes an entrance at the end. Okay, I got it. I didn't know what my father was thinking, but I decided to leave it to him. Then the day of the showdown arrived. Stick to the plan, I'll be a little late. I'll contact you when I get there, hold on until then. And as autumn deepened, it was time for our third visit. We arrived at Alex's house, exchanged brief greetings, and were shown to the living room. As usual, Mr. Johnson had a sour face. Hello, Ms. Johnson. It's nice to see you again. Welcome, Sarah. Your father is here today too. I wonder what kind of drink he'd like. Somehow, she seemed cheerful. Seeing her made me feel a bit more at ease. Don't bother with drinks. And why are you here again? This is the third time. Our fine liquor is wasted on poor people. Thank you for your concern, Ms. Johnson, but I'm fine for now. By the way, isn't your father supposed to be here? Did he get cold feet? Mr. Johnson continued to speak condescendingly. No, he's just running a bit late, I apologize. Well, it doesn't matter, it won't change anything even when he arrives. Alex, slightly irritated, rebuked him. Alex has it tough, I thought. Enough already. I'm the one getting married. It's not your place to keep complaining, is it? His words didn't reach his father. Mr. Johnson responded dismissively. Nonsense, am I not doing all this for you? Alex responded, that's more than I need. As we were having this barely passable discussion, my father contacted me. My father just contacted me. He's arrived. Then, the doorbell rang. Hello. Ms. Johnson, welcome, it's been a while. Ms. Johnson did a strangely formal greeting. It's been a while? But, Dad is supposed to be meeting her for the first time. I was curious. Then I heard. Oh, you remembered me, I'm pleased. I apologize for the intrusion, but today I am here as Sarah's father, Daniel Brown. Thank you for your consideration for my daughter. Don't mention it. Well, everyone has been waiting for you. Please come this way. Yes, thank you. Such exchanges took place, and my father was led into the living room. Hey, Robert, long time no see. My father said as he entered, and suddenly Mr. Johnson stood up straight. "Oh, you are Major Brown." "No, I mean, you were a colonel before you retired. I apologize." "Colonel Brown. It has been a while." Then he saluted. His right hand was raised sharply, fingers and thumb extended with the palm facing down. Alex and I could not grasp the situation. "Now, don't be so stiff. It's just that I was a colonel and you were a master sergeant, old stories. Besides, this is your house. You've come up in the world. I guess all that training I put you through was worth it." "Sir." "Well, for now, I'm sorry about the Spartan surroundings. But please, have a seat." "Oh, thanks. You have a seat, too. Everyone will be more relaxed if you're sitting." "Sir, then I will have a seat." "Excuse me." Saying that, Mr. Johnson sat down, but instead of the casual way he had been sitting, he now sat with a straight back. "Dad, you know Mr. Johnson?" I asked, as the situation was beyond my imagination. "Yes, back when I was in the military, this Robert here came in as a new recruit." Contrasting my casually speaking father, Mr. Johnson, who had been quite imposing until now, seemed to shrink. "Yes, I was under your care back then." "Well, it's quite a coincidence to meet like this, isn't it? Now you're a president? Quite the career leap for someone who used to be a dropout." "Sir, I apologize for any trouble I caused during my time in the military. After retiring, I took over my father's company and with everyone's help, have brought it to where it is today." He seemed continuously nervous throughout the conversation. Despite this, my father enjoyed reminiscing. "To think that the clumsy recruit is now a president. Good for you that you made it. Sir, could we perhaps stop talking about the past? But as for me, I wanted to hear more about those old stories." "Hey, Master Sergeant, is that important? You were a colonel, right?" "Yes, Master Sergeant is like a section chief if you were to compare it to a company role." "I was, well, a bit higher than that." Mr. Johnson nodded vigorously in response. "Sir, I had no idea that Colonel Brown's daughter would be involved with my Alex." My father chuckled heartily. "Let's drop the ranks. I'm retired now, just a civilian." At those words, Mr. Johnson responded even more deferentially. "Sir. Then let me do so. By the way." My father straightened his back a bit, looking down on Mr. Johnson. "I've heard a lot from my daughter. Since the old days, you've had this odd fixation with superior and inferior statuses. I told you countless times to stop, but you're still at it, aren't you? And now I hear you've been looking down on my daughter, calling her poor." "Exactly right." Alex's father shrunk even more. "Sir. I am very sorry for that. Since retiring, I've been working with a company you might know. Anderson Heavy Industries. It's the same company that made the tanks you used to drive. My cousin is the president and I'm now the director of the technical development department there. Thanks to my connections with the Army." Yet another connection spilled from my father's mouth. This revelation widened Mr. Johnson's eyes. "What, Anderson Heavy Industries?" "Yes, that's right. If I remember correctly, our companies have a business relationship with you." "Yes. Anderson Heavy Industries is a very important partner to our company. And we are extremely grateful for their support. I didn't come here to talk about work, but given the current situation, maybe it's something to think about?" The pressure from my overlooking father was immense. And Mr. Johnson shrank even smaller. For me, who had been looked down upon as a poor, and wanted to see what her parents look like, this was truly exhilarating. No, that would be very troubling. At that response, my father's tone became slightly harsher. Then shouldn't you, as a parent, be blessing the marriage of Alex and Sarah? We're not as poor as you think. Yes, you are correct. I am very sorry for my rude behavior. Saying that, Mr. Johnson continuously apologized in his formal position. Did you hear that, Alex? Sarah. Now, there should be no more issues with your marriage. My father looked up with a mission accomplished expression and turned to us. Yes. Thank you very much. Alex sincerely expressed his gratitude. Dad, thank you. I also expressed my thanks. If it weren't for my father, this conclusion might not have been possible. I truly felt grateful to have my father. Mr. Johnson remained looking down. Ms. Johnson, who was pleased with the term Sergeant Johnson, placing her hands on her hips and striking a defiant pose. Sergeant Johnson. With this, you agree to their marriage, right? Even you, what are you saying? Mr. Johnson became quiet. My father looked at me, gave a thumbs up, and winked. Then, Alex and I had our wedding without a hitch. Many of my father's university classmates attended the reception. It seemed he and his classmates had been prestigious in the military because Sergeant Johnson was made to stand at attention and was teased by everyone. At the wedding entertainment, my father's classmates performed something called military exercise. Of course, Sergeant Johnson was in charge of calling the commands and led the routine. Watching these grown men sweat as they exercised, Alex and I burst into laughter. After that incident, Ms. Johnson started calling his husband Sergeant Johnson and commanding him whenever she had requests. Now, she seems to have the upper hand. Alex and I are living a happy life together. We are blessed with 2 sons. My father adores his grandsons and becomes completely soft when he sees them. One day, when a friend from my father's days visited, they saw him being affectionate with his grandsons and chuckled, saying, "The man who was called the Demon Daniel." Today, my father and my sons are playing heroes in the garden. Special move. Miracle beam. Zop. Geek. I've been hit. Both my father and children are covered in mud. Really, they're just boys, huh? Saying this, I laughed along with my mother. My children, maybe you'll become real heroes in the future? Keep it up, future heroes. My name is Jocelyn. I am 29 years old and have been married for 2 years. My husband's name is Danny. I have been working as an insurance salesperson since graduating from high school. It's been 10 years since I joined the company. But I have a boss named Susan who I really don't get along with. Jocelyn, are you finally getting married? Yes, that's right. Congratulations. But I suppose he's not much of a catch, right? Why would you say that? Sorry. It's just that the guys these girls at our company marry are all so lame. I just thought your husband must be low level too. You really tear him down, don't you? Susan is 1 year older than me. She is single and has no boyfriend. Over the 10 years since I joined the company, several younger female employees got married before Susan did. She always got irritated whenever she heard marriage news. And she always followed the pattern of prying into the spouse's details and making snide remarks. Until now, I was just an observer of those conversations, but finally, it was my turn to be spoken about. However, Susan's reaction this time was a bit different. So? What does your partner do? Oh, you mean his job?
Yeah.
Not that it's anything impressive, but I'll listen just for the sake of conversation. What will you do with that information? If you're hiding it, it must be because you're too embarrassed to say. It's not like that. Then there's no need to hide anything, right? I didn't want to talk too much about him to Susan, who loves gossip. But she was so persistent that I ended up telling her which company my husband worked for. Danny works for a company that is well known as a top-tier corporation. Wow. Really? That company is super top tier. But that means the work is tough. I see. But where did you meet such a high-quality guy, Jocelyn? We've been together since our student days. Really? That was lucky. Lucky? Well, I mean, you have such an average face and seem like a typical girl. I was just curious where you met such a good person. That's a rather sharp way of speaking. Oh, not at all. If it sounded like sarcasm, I apologize. It's okay. Introduce him to me sometime. Yes. We had a conversation like this 2 years ago. I had no intention of introducing him, but Susan was so persistent that I let her meet Danny just once. I had no idea it would turn out like this. Long time no see. Looking forward to working with you again. My company occasionally transfers people. Susan had been working at another branch since last year but now returned. As I had been able to work without stress for a year since Susan was gone, I was quite upset when I learned she was coming back. Looking forward to working with you again. How are things going with your elite husband? You mean Danny? Yes. Why do you care? Just a little curious about whether you're still getting along. I see. By the way, I heard you recently bought a condo. Yes, I thought paying rent was a waste, so I finally bought one. But how do you know that? Just a little bird told me. Have you been in contact with Danny? What? You knew? Susan too, huh? What do you mean too? Never mind. How long have you seen Danny? About a year ago. I ran into him in town after I transferred, and we just hit it off. I see. After hearing the story, it seemed that Susan had run into Danny by chance after she transferred. She had been interested in Danny from the moment she first met him, and boldly struck up a conversation. The two of them clicked and are still getting along well. And now, Susan had some shocking news. If you knew I was dating Danny, I don't have to hide it. Oh. So you're not just in touch, you're actually dating him. That's right. Sorry. You don't need to apologize. Is that the composure of a wife? Well, then I'll let you in on another shocking fact. A shocking fact? What happened? Actually, I'm pregnant. It's Danny's baby. It's still very early, though. What? I didn't hear you clearly. Whose baby did you say you're carrying? Danny's. Is that so? I got the DNA of a rich man. Since I'm pregnant, you loser need to leave. Excuse me, I don't understand what you're saying? It seemed Susan was pregnant. The father was Danny. Susan planned to kick me out of the condo and would live there with Danny herself. Susan probably hadn't been informed of us at all. So, you, the loser, will leave the condo. Why do I have to leave the condo? Think about it. I'm pregnant with your husband's child. Naturally, you two will get divorced, and you, the loser who got dumped by Danny, should leave the condo. What? But I'm single, you know. What? Wait, what are you talking about? Are you confused because you're upset? I am perfectly calm. Haven't you heard anything from Danny? I haven't heard anything, but what? We got divorced last year. What? Is that true? What do you mean? Danny didn't tell you anything at all? No, he hasn't told me anything. Is that so? Last year means around the time we started dating? It could be around that time, yes. Danny and I divorced last year. Though we had been together for a long time, our marriage ended after just 1 year. The reason was entirely on Danny's side, and I received more property division than usual. With that money, I boldly bought my own condo. Susan was under the misunderstanding that Danny and I bought the condo together. Why are you living in the condo if you're divorced? Why? Because I bought the condo. I don't understand what you mean. Has Danny mentioned anything about the condo? He said he bought a condo and is living there now. Really? Susan, you've been deceived. He should be living in a condo with his girlfriend now. His girlfriend? I'm Danny's girlfriend. Do you want to hear why we got divorced?
Yeah.
Tell me. The reason for our divorce was Danny's infidelity. Infidelity? With whom? He cheated with a young girl and we got divorced. This is the first I've heard of it. Maybe Danny thought he could keep living as if he was still married, while having an affair with her and also cheat with you. I was considering divorcing Danny after he cheated. But I wanted to trust Danny again, having been together for so long. After many discussions, Danny strongly requested a divorce, offering more property division. So I decided to divorce if he was that determined. It appears that Danny was also cheating with Susan, aside from that young girl. Realizing what a scumbag he truly was, I almost wanted to applaud Danny's dexterity in juggling his affairs. So, even though I'm pregnant, I'm not his main girlfriend? Don't ask me. I wouldn't know. You better discuss that with Danny. But Danny is crazy about me, so I won't lose to some young girl. You're very confident. I'll take Danny away from any other woman. He's a quality man. Well, good luck with that. Then, for a while, Susan was off work due to severe morning sickness. A month later, she returned to work, and she had more shocking news. After all, Danny told me I'm his number one. Is that so? Good for you. He was happy when I told him about the baby, and he chose me over the young girl. Then that's good for you. So, I've decided to quit my job. What? Really? I'm going to be a full-time homemaker. You've always wanted to be a homemaker, haven't you? That's great. It seems like I'm special to Danny after all. Then I wish you happiness. Well, I guess we won't be seeing each other anymore. And you must be feeling lonely having your husband taken away, but take care and stay healthy. Danny seemed to have chosen Susan easily. Despite having paid a large amount of property division to leave me for a younger woman. Susan, utterly elated with happiness, had no idea at that time that Danny was keeping another secret from her. A few months later, Susan, now visibly pregnant, suddenly appeared at the company. Susan, long time no see. Is something wrong? Did you know about it? What? What are you talking about? That Danny has quit his job. What? Danny quit his job? You didn't know either. I've been deceived all this time. When we were married, he often said the job was tough and that he wanted to quit. But when did he quit? Probably after you divorced. I see. Danny quit his job sometime after our divorce. Apparently, he quit impulsively after a dispute with his boss. After quitting, Danny was dumped by the young girl who was the reason for our divorce. It seems that the young girl was Danny's true love. But Susan's pregnancy conveniently led to their marriage. You didn't realize he had quit his job? He was leaving the house in a suit every day, so I had no idea. That's terrible. He was once my beloved husband. But now I think he's the worst from the bottom of my heart. If I had known it would come to this, I would have stayed single. Maybe that would have been better. I got suspicious because he wasn't living as large as before. So when I pressed him, he told me. Is that what happened? By the way, why are you here today? I quit this company without discussing it with him. You resigned without consulting him. I thought there was no need for me to work since he was working at a top company. He did have a good salary at his company. I was planning to be a full-time homemaker and focus on raising children. Then, are you coming back to our company? That's what I came to ask for. Danny also asked me to. I see. I hope you can get rehired. I still remember the proud look on Susan's face when she took Danny from me. But now, her face looked completely different. They already hired someone new and rejected my reapplication immediately. Is that what happened? I shouldn't have quit this job. It had good pay and I liked the work. At the time, you quit suddenly. For now, just focus on having a healthy baby. What are you trying to act nice for? You must be thinking this serves me right. I'm not thinking that. I thought I stole a quality man, but he turned out to be a huge flaw. If you're told it's your own fault, there's not much you can do about it, right? I shouldn't have taken him if I knew it would come to this. If you say that, it's unfair to Danny. He loves children, so he'll surely be a good father. I really don't need a man who can't earn much. Don't say that. Try to get along from now on. You're probably laughing inside. That's not true. Feeling pity for Susan as Danny proved to be a disappointment, I was really glad I divorced him. Susan left the company with a heavy heart. A few months later, Danny suddenly called me. It's been a while. What's up? Well, I just wanted to hear your voice again. What's that about? Isn't it about time for the baby to be born? Actually. What? What is it? Susan found out about my affair and left. What? You cheated with another person? You never learn. Because it's not fun talking with Susan, and I'm not happy with her, so I had to cheat. What's that? Danny, you really only think about yourself. Of course. My own happiness comes first. I see. You always love yourself the most. By the way, are you working properly now? I'm working at a company with a low salary now. I shouldn't have quit my previous job. That was a waste. It seems Danny cheated again. This led to discussions about divorce with Susan. And it looks like she might sue him for property division and child support. And then, he said something unbelievable to me. Jocelyn. Let's get remarried. What? What are you talking about? Because you used to love me so much. That's a story from the past. I've realized after being apart. What have you realized? I need you. What's that? You're too smooth. I don't need you anymore. You earn a good salary, so even with my low salary, we could live normally, right? So what? Also, when we divorced, you took a huge amount of property division from me, right? My current poverty is partly your fault. I promise I won't cheat ever again. Please, let's try again. No way. Danny, you're a father now, so you should think about your child first. You need to have a serious talk with Susan. Danny's cheating habits will probably never change. I clearly refused him over the phone and blocked his number, not wanting any contact in the future. I don't know what happened to them after that. A year has passed since Danny's call. I have a new boyfriend now and am living very happily. When we went to a restaurant. Huh? Susan, is that you? Oh, long time no see. Do you work here? Yes. I have to work to make ends meet. You're working hard. You introduced me to such a man, and now my life is a mess. No, it's more like you took him from me. I didn't think he was that kind of man. Then, my boyfriend, who knew the whole story, said just one thing. It's a waste of time to talk to a thief like her. I don't want our date to be ruined by such a woman. Let's go home. With that, we left the restaurant. The frustrated look on Susan's face at that moment. I will never forget that face. It seems Susan and Danny are still living together for the sake of their child without getting divorced. Because Danny doesn't earn enough, Susan has to work multiple part-time jobs. Her life is far from her dream of being a homemaker. The price she paid for trying to steal happiness from others was great. As for me, I have received a raise at work and am enjoying my job. And now I'm spending a peaceful and happy life with my kind boyfriend. When I had my husband stolen by a close boss, those were truly mentally tough days. But now I want to spend calm and happy days. You promised you would leave when I returned, didn't you? The month is almost over, let's handle the last task, hand over the divorce papers. Next to my ex-husband stood a woman and a child. The woman was holding hands with a child of about preschool age. Let me introduce you, this is my new wife Michelle. Michelle was still young and quite flashy. As I said earlier, we are strangers now, you no longer have the right to be in this house. My ex-husband said this and then suddenly flashed an unpleasant smirk. Sign the divorce papers, and your son and you get out of the house. His gaze looked down upon my son Ted and me, gleaming with triumph. He believed everything was going according to his plan. So, when he learned the truth, he collapsed on the spot. How could you do this, thinking you were just a homemaker who knew nothing? As he muttered, Ted said in disbelief. What? Dad, you know nothing? When Ted showed him a book, he became half frantic. My name is Ashley Manning. I am 42 years old. A part-time homemaker. I have a 16-year-old son with my husband, Robin, who works for a trading company. He travels frequently for work, both domestically and internationally. And I have mostly raised our son on my own. Currently, my husband is on a solo assignment, so we are nearly separated. And we mostly communicate through online calls or messages. The distance is too far for a day trip though within the country. He only comes home during Easter, summer vacation, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Even then, we hardly spend quiet time as a family of 3, just dropping by the in-laws' home. Which is about an hour's drive away. I think my relationship with my husband is neither particularly good nor bad. After many years of marriage, even couples who live together might find this to be quite normal. There is familial love, but no romantic passion between us as a couple. His workplace is a major trading company, so we haven't had any financial difficulties. Because my husband was often away, I stayed at home full-time when Ted was younger to make sure he wasn't lonely, which my husband agreed to. However, as Ted reached the upper grades of elementary school, and my husband started living separately due to his assignment, Ted seemed to find me somewhat bothersome. I recall my brother was the same at that age. It seems to be a phase they go through. That made me want to find a job. It's fine to work, but I don't want to be seen as incompetent. That was the first thing he said when I talked about wanting to work. Maybe choose a job that feels like an extension of your hobbies. Something that feels like an upgrade. I was fine with any job as long as the workplace suited me. But I considered his opinion and decided to assist at a flower arrangement class. I have a license in flower arrangement. And since many of my husband's work colleagues are foreigners, it seemed useful. Nice, that will be useful even when I'm transferred abroad. My husband agreed, so I continued that part-time job. Financially, we were not struggling. But I still wanted to have a serious conversation with him about our son's future.
Yeah.
I was also thinking we need to talk about the future seriously. I was relieved by his response. Ted is a freshman in high school and will be advancing to the next grade this fall. It's about time to seriously decide on his career path. I'm supposed to return to the head office this fall. It's the right time with the school advancements and all. But the future matters my husband talked about when he returned for the Easter holiday was unexpected. I want a divorce. He started the conversation without giving a reason first. We've been living apart for a long time now, and that's enough reason for a divorce. It's not too late for both of us to start a new life. Wait. That's so sudden. This is indeed a bolt from the blue. I hurriedly interrupted his words. Living apart? That was just because of your solo assignment. I never thought of it as living apart. But you didn't come with me, did you? That was because of Ted's school and also your father. My father-in-law is alive and well, living alone in a senior citizen's apartment. Originally, the house we live in was my husband's family home. But when we got married, his parents moved out to that apartment. My husband didn't have a good relationship with his father. While his mother was alive, he still kept in touch with his parents. But after her death, he stopped all contact. I told you to leave that man alone, didn't I? He's in a proper facility and doesn't need us to take care of him. I can't just ignore him like that. The estrangement between my husband and his father wasn't due to any particular reason. It was the accumulation of minor issues over many years. And even among family members, relationships can sometimes not work out. Both his father and the late mother were very kind people. That's why I had been close to them both. And kept in touch with my father-in-law even after he was left alone. I visit him at the apartment occasionally. That was something you did on your own, right? I never asked for it. That was indeed true, but it's not something that can be so easily dismissed. It's the same with Ted's school. If you had wanted to, he could have transferred schools. Wasn't it you who wanted Ted to enroll in that school? Ted had gone through the so-called entrance exams and entered a school that provided education straight through to university. I wanted it too, but if you really wanted to, you could have transferred schools, right? That's true, but you can't just do that. That means you chose not to live with me. So, please handle this. He said this as he handed me a completed divorce paper. I've come back, but you can't stay with me in this state. I'll stay at a hotel. Leaving those words behind, he left the house. I was left behind, stunned. Why are you sitting in the dark? Where's Dad? Ted had been out watching a movie with friends that day. He returned home late at night. My husband had come and gone in the mid-afternoon. It seemed I had just sat there for hours. What's this? Ted picked up the divorce papers that were still on the coffee table. What should I do? How should I explain this? I still hadn't gathered my thoughts, and I didn't know what to say to him. Seeing me frozen, Ted sighed, put down the divorce papers, and left. Oh, I would be abandoned by not only my husband but also my son. As I sat there stunned, Ted came back quickly. Eat something. If you're hungry, you can't think straight. Eat well, sleep well, and then we can think about what to do next. Saying that, he offered a plate with 2 big sandwiches. They were big but not in good shape, obviously made with effort. Thinking that, tears began to spill from my eyes. Just eat, will you? Ted pretended not to see my tears and urged me to eat, and I ate the sandwiches through my tears. The simple sandwiches tasted better than any delicacy I had ever had. After returning to his assignment, my husband sent several messages. They went something like this. I want to get divorced by next fall. I'll properly pay child support for Ted until he is an adult. Adulthood starts at 18 now, but since he will turn 18 while in high school, I'll take care of him until he graduates. The message was a list of words as if he was doing me a favor by paying. Ted isn't just my child, but our child. How can he so arrogantly speak of his minimum obligations? I will be back from my assignment this fall and will live in that house. Make sure you are prepared to move out by then. 6 months should be enough time to find a suitable place. I'm generous enough to pay for the moving expenses. If I need to move from the house I had lived in for many years, I will surely make him pay. However, I can't see why I need to leave. Why must I leave this house? The reason for the divorce is that the marriage has naturally broken down. So I think I don't need to pay any money to you. But I recognize your long-term dedication as a homemaker. And I am willing to pay some support money. Of course, I won't ask for any money from you. I see no reason why I should pay him. I wasn't just living for fun. We were living apart, but when my husband couldn't come back, I would visit him with Ted at his assignment, and we interacted like a normal family. I cannot accept natural breakdown as a reason. If you say you can't make a living with your current job, I'm willing to help you find a job. But in that case, you'll need to leave this town. I assume you wouldn't enjoy running into me either. My current job as a flower arrangement assistant isn't enough to make a living. But being told to leave this town and find a job elsewhere is something I cannot accept. Why must I do such a thing? I'll give you custody of Ted. He would be more comfortable with you since you've been together for so long. Plus, he's nearing adulthood and shouldn't rely on his parents forever. If Ted needs me, I'm willing to help with some matters, but I won't demand any visits. If we do get divorced, I surely intend to take custody of Ted. But reading this, it seems like my husband is even trying to abandon his son. How can he be so devoid of emotion? How hurt Ted would be if he knew all this. I sighed after reading everything, finding none of the reasons acceptable. What an unreasonable argument. I was shocked and desperate when I was told about the divorce. But I have started to think I am better off without such a selfish person. I went to his place of assignment to talk. It was during work hours, but I have a key to his apartment. As I entered, the room was as neat as usual. It was as if no one lived there. He's always been meticulous, but it really looked like a show apartment. As I waited in the room, my husband came home in the evening. You were here? If you were coming, you should have called. He said grumpily. Did you bring the signed divorce papers today? I'm done with it, you could just file them yourself. Without even looking at me, he took off his suit jacket and tie. He meticulously hung each item on hangers, smoothing out the wrinkles. He was always like this. I remembered the times we lived together. Everything was so proper, without any flaws. What, you thought there might be a woman here? Sorry to disappoint. There was indeed no such indication. What about dinner? I've already eaten, as usual. It's been a while since I enjoyed a homemade meal at home. He said sarcastically, then took a cold beer from the fridge, sat at the table, and started drinking. You understand now why I said I wanted a divorce. I'm tired of living like this for years. Then you should have just said you wanted me to come. Ted is there, and even though you say it's just a part-time job, you've started working and have a rhythm to your life. I can't just ask you to drop everything and come. He said this and took another sip of his beer. Living like this, I suddenly thought one day. Maybe it's okay not to have a family. It seems he is insisting that the separation due to his solo assignment is the cause of the divorce. Then could you at least wait until Ted graduates from high school? It's only 2 more years, no, just 1.5 years left. No, I want a divorce by next fall. What happens next fall? My husband reacted slightly to these unexpected words. I told you, I'm supposed to return to the head office. I thought it was a good opportunity. Can't we live as a family for just that much longer, at least for the last year? No, it has to be by next fall. The discussion was at a deadlock, and he insisted on having the divorce by next fall no matter what. Unable to do anything, I left his room, stayed at a hotel that night, and decided to go home the next day. I couldn't bear to spend any more time alone with my husband in that room. After that, I never visited his place again. I realized it was futile. Important matters were handled via messages that would remain on record. And I started to prepare for various things as fall approached. First was negotiating unacceptable aspects of my husband's proposal. I wanted him to continue providing for Ted's education until he graduated from college. If he didn't agree, I wouldn't sign the divorce papers. That triggered an angry phone call from him. I said until he's 18. If you don't like that, I won't pay any child support after the divorce. That's impossible because we are still married until I submit the divorce papers. Besides, you have a duty to pay child support until Ted becomes an adult. After several exchanges on this issue, he finally gave in. Fine, I'll pay for his tuition until he graduates from college, but only for 4 years. If he fails and has to repeat a year, I won't pay for anything beyond that. Understood, I appreciate it for the 4 years. Please make that into a notarized document. Are you saying you don't trust me? Of course, that's a given. I can't trust a man who suddenly pushes for a divorce for such reasons. I never know when he might change his mind. If you won't listen, we'll go to mediation, and if that doesn't work, to court. That made him agree to put it in a notarized document. But I won't pay any other money for the divorce. Yes, that's fine. Of course, I won't pay any either. Good, then hurry up and submit the divorce papers. Each time he said it, I challenged him with aspects of the divorce terms I couldn't accept. About the division of property that needs to be properly handled too. I've been supporting you, who doesn't work. Do you still plan to take more? I wasn't being supported. I was raising your child. If you're going to call me an unemployed parasite, we'll start with mediation and go to court if necessary. After saying this, although reluctantly, he agreed to the property division. And of course, that was put into a notarized document too. He was a high earner, so it was a significant amount. You've taken enough now, just submit the divorce papers already. Oh, it's okay, to wait until next fall, right? Something might still come up, so please wait. If you think delaying will make me withdraw the divorce, you're wrong. As fall approached, my husband increasingly couldn't hide his irritation. Why are you so irritated? It doesn't matter if it's slightly delayed, right? It matters a lot. Is there some urgent reason? If there is, please tell me, and I'll consider it. Even when I offered concessions, he said there was nothing of the sort. So, I think there's no problem if I don't agree to the divorce until I'm satisfied. Right now, I hold the cards. I intend to play them as I see fit. As I hesitated to sign the divorce papers, I moved forward with various tasks. And the months flew by. When will you submit the divorce papers? It's already July. My husband, who hadn't come home for Easter, said this impatiently. Yes, it's July now. But there are still a few months until fall, and a little delay shouldn't be a problem. I'm repeatedly telling you to do it definitely by next fall. I want to have the divorce settled before I return to the head office. Even if you say that, it's hard to make up my mind and there's a lot to do. I deftly dodged my husband's demands. And you've already decided where you'll live, right? Don't worry, that's already settled. Good, because I'll be commuting from that house starting the new fiscal year. Relieved, my husband let out a genuine sigh. Take care on your way back. Even so, Ted and you will be leaving the house in turn with me. Remember, it's not like I'm going back to your place. I already know that without being told. I no longer intend to accept this man as family. And in the last week of September, my husband came home. All sorts of arrangements have been made, but the divorce papers have not yet been submitted. You promised to leave when I returned, right? And now the month is almost over, time for the last task, handing over the divorce papers. A woman and a child were next to my husband. The woman was holding hands with a child about preschool age. Let me introduce you, this is my new wife Michelle. Michelle was still young and quite flashy. Nice to meet you, is this your son? Michelle awkwardly hid the child behind her. What's your name, sweetie? Hey, stop. That's none of your business. My husband said this while shielding the child. Like I said earlier, we're strangers now, you no longer have any right to be in this house. He said this and suddenly flashed an unpleasant smirk. Sign the divorce papers, and your son and you get out of the house. His gaze was looking down at Ted and me, shining with a triumphant light. So that's what it was. What does it matter, all sorts of arrangements should have been finished. Just submit the divorce papers, and that's it, we agreed not to ask for any compensation, right? I'm relieved to hear that. I heard you've received a lot from Robin. So there's no need to feel guilty anymore. Her last words seemed to be directed at my husband.
Yeah.
That's right. I really wanted to have registered by today, I'm truly sorry about that. But it seems we'll make it in time for Sean's school entry. Yes, the reason my husband rushed the divorce. It was to ensure the child he had with Michelle could start school on time as a proper family. As a parent, I can understand wanting to enroll the child in elementary school properly. But that's a separate issue from this one. I told my husband and Michelle. Actually, I already submitted the divorce papers this morning. Here, this is the certificate. I handed the acceptance certificate of the divorce papers to my husband. As long as I have this, no problem. My husband showed it to Michelle, and the two of them nodded in satisfaction. Then our talk is over, there's no need for you to be here anymore, get out quickly. About that, Ted and I have the right to live here, you're the one who should leave. Don't talk nonsense, this is my house. Poor husband, he doesn't know. I need to educate him properly. Whose name is this house under? That would be my father's. What's his is mine. Wrong, it's in my name. Hearing this, my husband's face showed a moment of surprise, but he quickly laughed and said, You must be confused because you think you have residency rights, that it's in your name? I wouldn't make such a silly mistake. Once we're divorced, you have no relation to my father. Which means you no longer have the right to live here. Sighing, I presented another document. What is this? His eyes widened as he looked at the document. I've been adopted by your father. He decided to leave this house to me. What I showed my husband was the certificate of adoption. My name was clearly written as an adopted child. That's ridiculous. See, it's true, isn't it? Your father did this because I've always cared about him. After my husband brought up divorce, I consulted with my father-in-law. My own parents had both died not long after I got married. My in-laws treated me like their own daughter. That's why I cared for them dearly, far more than their actual son, my husband. My father-in-law had suggested I thoroughly investigate, so he hired a detective agency. They discovered my husband had a mistress and a secret child. You wanted a solo assignment to live with her, didn't you? Michelle had met my husband while working at a nightclub. She was only 20 at the time but quickly became close to my husband. And they developed a deep relationship. Then she became pregnant. My husband decided to lead a double life to live with Michelle and their child. I visited your solo assignment location several times. But now I understand why I never saw any sign of a woman. My husband had 2 houses at his assignment. One home was for living with them, your sweet home. The other was a camouflage to deceive us, so we wouldn't realize there was a woman. After my husband was assigned alone, I visited several times with Ted. I always admired how clean you kept it. But of course, you weren't really living there. My husband had even installed cameras in that house. And he received notifications whenever someone entered the room. When your father found out how deceitful that was, he was furious and decided he would leave nothing to you. And everything would go to Ted instead, and offered me to be adopted. This can't be. My husband probably believed everything was going according to his plans. But he collapsed on the spot when he learned the truth. Do you understand disinheritance? Your father is processing that. What is that? Simply put, it means excluding you as an heir from your father's inheritance. If the process is completed, you will officially no longer be an heir. And the inheritance will pass by representation to Ted. There's a way to exclude an heir if the person leaving the property decides, for some reason, that they shouldn't inherit. In this case, my father-in-law decided to do so because of the almost estranged relationship with his son and the appalling way he treated his family. When my husband loses his qualification as an heir, Ted, as the grandson, will be recognized as a subsequent heir. If my husband disputes this decision, he could file a lawsuit. For that potential situation, my father-in-law decided to adopt me and give me the house as a gift during his lifetime. Your father and I decided to do this after consulting. How can you do something like this? Thinking you were just a homemaker who knew nothing. As he muttered, Ted spoke up in disbelief. What? Dad, you don't know anything? Ted handed a book to him. Mrs. Rose's Brilliant Reasoning? What is this book? I know it. It's a popular light novel right now. It's going to be animated soon. I'm reading it too. I love it. That book, Mom wrote it. She studied a lot to write it, including about the law. Both were stunned by Ted's words. Indeed, I was the homemaker my husband thought I was. Someone who had never done anything worldly. But I loved writing and had been secretly posting novels online without my husband knowing. And using the flower arrangement class I attended part-time as a setting. I wrote a series where Mrs. Rose, the assistant and homemaker, solved difficult cases one after another, which became a big hit. I haven't heard such a story. There's talk of it being animated, and I was just about to confess to you. But then you brought up divorce first. What a pity. Then the royalties from that book are marital property. Right? How much will you make from the adaptation of cartoons? We need to properly divide that wealth too, right? Unfortunately, I have already submitted the divorce papers. Royalties and income from the adaptation of cartoons are no longer any of your concern. Hearing this, my husband yelled out loud, repeating that's a lie over and over. What a foolish man. The moment you realize I have value after years of belittling, deceiving, and trying to drive me out, you come with this? If you have anything to say, talk to my lawyer from now on. Now, please leave immediately. With that, I quickly kicked my husband and Michelle out of the house. I felt sorry for little Sean, but there was nothing I could do for him. My husband repeatedly asked for reconciliation, but there was no way I would accept that. More importantly, make sure you acknowledge Sean properly. He's starting elementary school soon, right? It's cruel to leave it as it is. Later, Michelle also pressed for Sean's acknowledgement, and they officially became a family. It was only right for the sake of the child. After the elementary school entrance ceremony, once their lives had settled, my husband contacted me. You're making a good profit, right? Then cut me some slack on child support, make it like it never happened. Despite such ridiculous requests, I of course rejected them. When I told him that refusal of payment would lead to mediation or court, he quietly agreed to pay. It seems my husband borrowed the money from his company, though he managed to secure a loan from the company, thinking he could keep working at the headquarters and repay it unnoticed. But somehow his actions became known to the company. Moreover, it became clear that his request for a solo assignment was for such purposes. Heaven's vengeance is slow but sure. As the saying goes, the heavens are watching. The higher-ups in the company were furious when they discovered he had used such immoral purposes. As a result, he was demoted and sent to a subsidiary in a rural area. His salary decreased, and now he and his wife are working desperately to repay their debts. But perhaps it was for the best. In a new place, Sean can start as a normal family without anyone knowing he was born under such circumstances. An innocent child shouldn't suffer for his parents' actions. As for me, after the divorce, my work was successfully adapted into a cartoon and sparked a minor craze. Merchandise was developed, and in an era where ebooks are becoming mainstream, my paper book, with a supplement, sold exceptionally well. The editor keeps asking me for the next work. My life is busy, leaving no room to dwell on past hurts. Cartoons are hugely popular all over the world. My work is broadcast here and there, receiving significant feedback internationally. Ted has grown up straight despite everything. He will start university this fall, and during those 4 years, he told me he wants to find what he truly wants to do and his own strength, just like I did. Whatever happens, it's my life, so I won't rely on Mom too much. He says such cheeky things, but as a parent, I'd be happy if he relied on me just a bit. Maybe I'll write a new story with a cheeky college student as the protagonist. I have a feeling the next work will also be a hit. I think this to myself as I watch my capable son,